West Ham 3, Arsenal 1. Arsenal were outclassed and absolutely outplayed by David Moyes and West Ham today in the Carabao Cup. Arsenal deserved losers. West Ham deserved winners. Well done to West Ham for getting to the next round of the Carabao Cup. And I hate to say I told you so, but I am going to say I told you so, because going out of domestic cups early every single season is not a badge of honor. It's not anything that Arsenal fans should be, pretending or painting as something that the big clubs do. I get that Liverpool threw the smaller domestic cups away early on in Klopp's tenure, but newsflash, Klopp is a world-class manager and won them the league. And oh, by the way, the Champions League. Pep would always take the Carabao Cup a little bit more seriously and win that before he won the Premier League. So where do Arsenal get off by thinking that they're too good for the Carabao Cup, or that it's not an important competition for a young team that's never won any silverware at all at this club? By this time, nobody in the current team has won that FA Cup. So this team needs silverware, and this is a really good opportunity to do so. And we absolutely shot the bed. We deserved nothing out of that game. We were atrocious from minute one to the very end. And Odegaard scored in like the very last minute of the game. There's nothing to take from it from a positive unless we didn't get any injuries. The way that we set up was the way that we always set up in domestic cups. And I don't know if the manager's just not, the light bulb is not going off, but Arsenal are just not the type of team that can start off with a heavily rotated side and not have to have their big players come off the bench and try to save them. And usually once the tide is going in one direction, it continuously goes in that direction in these circumstances. I remember Mikel Arteta starting Charlie Patino and Sambi in midfield. Guess what? We went out of that competition. I remember Mikel Arteta against Sporting at home starting Jorginho, Zinchenko was at left back, and Vieira and Xhaka. Newsflash, we went out of that competition. And so continuously setting ourselves up in ways that don't suit us and heavily rotating in competitions, I think just gives off the stench of unseriousness and makes the players feel like this is not an important competition. Like if you look at the lineup, when as soon as we saw it, what did I say? We don't care about this cup, clearly. And the players played like it. And so everybody is at fault. Starts from the manager, comes down to the players. And I feel sorry for any Arsenal fan that went to that game, because it's not even like, we even tried. Like it was just it was giving, we don't give a shit. And like, it's one thing to lose, but the way that you lose is important. If you go down swinging, what can you say? And I think if we had cared at all, if we had even tried at all, we would have gotten something, or at least gotten to penalties, even if we weren't playing our best. But I am so sorry. Arsenal played that game like they could have been anywhere else, like they wanted to be anywhere else. And this team is not good enough and has not won enough to be turning their nose up at a Carabao Cup. I hate when the fans do it. I hate when the players look like they're doing it. And I hate when the manager does it. And so well done to West Ham. They totally deserve it. Yeah, like we had the own goal. But in the second half, they came out like they knew that we were there to be taken. And we were. We came out worse in the second half than we did in the first half. How is that possible? We were horrendous in the first half. We came out there like we could not be asked, and it was embarrassing, and we got absolutely slapped, and we deserved to be slapped. So I'm tired of hearing bigger fish to fry and this competition doesn't matter, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next competition. What if we get Manchester City in an early round in the FA Cup again? What if we get, to the next round of the Champions League and we get Real Madrid? Then we're going to be looking back at this Carabao Cup like, damn, should we have not tried a little bit harder against West Ham? I'm not saying that we can't rotate. And I feel like people go too far every single time. It's, oh, well, we should still rotate because we have bigger fish to fry. I didn't say don't rotate, but the way that we rotated against Sheffield is the same way that we should have rotated today. Was a couple of players out to take a rest, whether if that was one of Saka or Martinelli, one player out of the midfield change, one defensive change, one on each line. But when you have Vieira and Havertz and Jorginho and Trossard and Vieira, like when you have everybody that's different, and then you stick Zinchenko and Jorginho together against a physical West Ham side, you're asking to go out. You're asking to go out. And so many questions on the manager. They better not turn around and lose to Newcastle at the weekend either. Because, oh, by the way, Newcastle were able to rotate their team and still get past into the next round. So it's more than just the way that the manager set them up. It's more than just rotation. I think those things are important, but the team just didn't care. And maybe if the manager showed that he cared about the competition by putting a Rice out there, by putting a Saka out there, by showing the team that he cares about it, maybe they go out there and actually try. Like, that was a very stinky performance, and it's not the first time that I've seen it. It's just the biggest slapping that we've gotten. So, yeah, I just what else? Like, what else do you guys want me to say? I mean, everybody's getting a 0 that started the game because nobody played well. I thought Reese Nelson was the most busy, but for the most part, nobody deserves anything because they basically went out there and walked around, half tried to pass the ball. Zinchenko and Jorginho very slow and ponderous on the ball the entire time. The first goal was a calamity. The own goal, I mean, I love Ben White, but he has to take the majority of the blame. I know Ramsdale was being pulled. He couldn't get to it. The second goal is just so simple. It's just a crossfield ball. They're number one for crossfield passes, by the way. It's something that they always try to do. Crossfield pass into Kudus. He takes it down beautifully. Zinchenko is a no man's land through Gabriel's legs and into the back of the net. And the third one is just a second ball off of Ben White's, header. Nobody gets out to it. Bowen hits it. It hits off of Kivior and goes in the back of the net. I mean, it couldn't have gotten any easier. We might as well have been a relegation side, or we might as well have been a team that just didn't show up and just said, you know what, we'll take the forfeit 3-0, because all we did was put minutes on our legs. We didn't do anything. And I know it was 3-1, but that was 3-0. Like, I don't care what anybody says, it's 3-0. We scored a consolation goal, but it really doesn't matter in the end. At the end of the day, we went out of this competition because we were pathetic. And I get that it's only the second loss of the season, so it's like, why are you raging? But it's different. It's about how we went out, and it's the fact that it was the Carabao Cup, and that was a really good opportunity at silverware that we just threw away in the trash, thinking that it's going to be so much better in the FA Cup and the Champions League. Mark my words, we're going to get very hard draws in those competitions, and people are going to be wishing that we did much better against West Ham, because this is a very winnable cup, and this team has no business thinking that they're too good to play in the Carabao Cup and win it. We don't have any silverware. The Community Shield is not real. We need real silverware, and we haven't gotten it. It's like it's just so frustrating. We do it all the time, and I get tired of hearing the same shit. I know that there is somebody out there on the internet right now, an Arsenal fan, saying, well, we need to be focusing on the Premier League. We need to be focusing on the Premier League. Bigger fish to fry. It's just a distraction. Okay. We didn't take it serious. Costi says, that was a shitty performance. I'm annoyed that we are not taking these small cups seriously. Quitone says, no one gives a crap about this competition. I'll take more injuries. I'll take no more injuries and move on to Newcastle. This mentality is so poor. Like, nobody cares about this competition. We should care about it. We're not that good to be thinking that, like, big clubs that have won things think the Carabao Cup is a waste of time. Arsenal we're not there yet. We're living off of our history. This is not the same side. We have a novice manager that's won one competition. This team hasn't won anything, so they should not be turning their nose up at a Carabao Cup. It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. When Newcastle win their first piece of silverware before this team does, you guys are going to be wishing that you went harder in this competition. It is a farce that we should not be taking this competition seriously. This team is like, we're basically banking on beating Manchester City to the Premier League. That's going to be very difficult. Winning the Champions League, be for real. Like, I'm not having it this season. We did this last season. Ify says we should be fighting for every piece of silverware. Mark says Manchester United 0, Newcastle 3. This is without Isak, Wilson, Bruno, and Trippier. So they were able to rotate or deal without injuries and still whoop on Manchester United. So what's our excuse? What's our excuse? We have bigger fish to fry? Let's be for real, you guys. Let's be for real. Like, we need to get to the, like, this is such a bad mentality to have. We should want to win every single competition. And that doesn't mean that we need to play all of our best 11 every single game. But can we not just rotate lightly? Because rotating 5, 6 players out has never worked for us. We've always lost and went out of cup competitions very early when we play these types of lineups. Stop doing it. It's getting ridiculous at this stage. Owen says, watch us complain when a team we could have beaten wins the Carabao Cup and we go trophyless. Got to respect the cup. We did it in squad and mentality. I agree. John says, even City can't do 4 competitions. I don't care what City is doing. City is elite. Well, when will we stop comparing ourselves to clubs that have done things like, yes, Arsenal in history are a big club, but that history was in 2024. Like that was a long, like that, or in 2004, that was a long time ago. So Manchester City, an elite side that have been winning the Premier League for like 6, 7 years now and have just won their first Champions League. Of course, like we should not be comparing ourselves to them right now. They've won it. They've done it. They won the Carabao Cup like 5 times in a row. We're not City. Stop comparing us to City. We're not City. Like they won the Carabao Cup. They took it serious. So it's a nonsense. It's a nonsense. Let's see. Sitwala says the performance wasn't as bad as you make it sound. We were unlucky to go down 3. No. They scored 3 goals. No. I'm sorry. Brett says you're spinning out of control. If I was out of control, I'd be probably jumping or sweating or screaming or whatever. I'm not out of control. I'm frustrated. And if we could just get to the point where we stop policing certain fans' responses to losing really badly. We got slapped by West Ham in a competition that I felt like was a very good opportunity to win silverware. So I'm not spinning out of control. I'm keeping it real. So if you don't like this, like if you want somebody to sit there and say, you know what, it just wasn't that bad. It's fine. We've only lost 2 games this season. Going out of domestic cups early, it's fine. There's no problem there. It's not the right channel for you to be watching because anybody that's watched me has known that I felt like this is a problem. It has not gotten any better. And it puts a lot of pressure on us to win big competitions they're going to be much more difficult for us to win. And this young team has not won any silverware. I just think if they won a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup or something like that, that would take the pressure off of having to win the Premier League or the Champions League in the next 1-2 years, which is going to be very difficult for a young side to do. So I'm not spinning out of control. I'm very much so in control. You don't like what I'm hearing because I'm not telling you and coddling and saying like, this is fine. I'm not going to say it. Like I said at the beginning of the season, I would take a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup plus a title challenge and, Champions League deep run quarterfinals, because I know how difficult it's going to be for this team to win the Premier League or the Champions League. So again, I'm not spinning out of control. I think people want to hear that it's okay to be losers and it's not. So, yeah, like it's just, we're not good enough to be turning our nose up to any piece of silverware. Noble Keck says, I'm so pissed. I had the mentality of bigger fish to fry last season, but I soon realized who the F do we think we are to throw our nose up at the cup. And like, that's the thing. It's like, we go through the same cycle every single season and we convince ourselves that it's okay. It's not. Like, I'm not saying that, we had to win it. I'm just saying West Ham were not that good. And had they had played really well and had we had lost 3-2, but we had played our socks off with a rotated lineup and they just were better than us on the day, whatever, that would be a lot easier to swallow than a 3-0 slapping where everybody, did we all watch the same game? Mentality, body language, the way that the manager set us up, like it's just not okay. And so this thing about like we should just all stop, because a lot of it is like nobody wants criticism on Arsenal because they're afraid rivals are going to pick up on it and use it against us. I don't give a shit about that. I don't care. Rivals can say whatever they want to say about us. As a fan base, we are weak-minded and we continue to set the standards really low. I'm not saying we have to win the Champions League or the Premier League. Like that's going to be really difficult. But we don't even expect to get we don't even put enough pressure, or we're not upset about going out the way that we did against West Ham. We're not winning anything. Like we're not winning anything. It's just not the right mentality to have. The Patriot Gunner says, a sign of worse things to come. Arteta out. He's a mediocre coach. Not quite Arteta out, but I just need him to stop doing the same things over and over again. Like when I saw the lineup, if you guys were here for the pre-match vibes, and even yesterday when I went live, I said that I was very like I really didn't want to see Jorginho and Zinchenko together. And I really didn't want to see 5-6 changes. I wanted to see pretty much like a similar lineup to what we had against Sheffield. Maybe, Kivior in and Saliba out, or, Tommy in, whatever. But we went full does not play well together, no continuity, no balance, no nothing to combat their physicality, nothing. We didn't do anything to rotate but still be competitive. Again, it was just so obvious that we were going to get outplayed, and it's the manager just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, or maybe he's totally okay with going out of these competitions and we just need to accept it. Boy says, if Fabio Vieira, Jorginho, Trossard, Nelson, Kivior, Ramsdale, and Havertz don't fetch any more starts this season, then they simply have themselves to blame after today's performance. Yeah, none of them played well. I thought Nelson was bright, so I don't want to really lump him in with everybody else. But he was getting no service. I don't know how you guys feel about Ramsdale. I think it's a little bit I don't know. I don't feel like I should be the one speaking on Ramsdale anymore. I think people are really we've done it to death. I will expect to see Raya against Newcastle, and I don't think anybody should expect Ramsdale in based on this performance. I don't think it's all on him. I think the defense was pretty poor anyway, but he didn't really do anything to make it seem like Raya should be out. So, it is what it is. I don't think Ramsdale was the headline for me in this game. I'll say that. I don't think it's oh my gosh, if Ramsdale had played better, we would have won, because everything was atrocious. We didn't even create any chances really. But it really wasn't the type of game that's going to, I think, have anybody, hurling abuse at me about me saying that Raya should be in goal. So there you go. Monk says, it is arrogance on Arteta's part to expect this team to win, or do you guys reckon he just doesn't care about the cup? I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Does he think that this team is good enough, or does he just not care? I think that he was too unwilling to risk the Newcastle game. So he started off with a really weak side, but then was willing to, once we went 2-0 down and 3-0 down, to put our starters in, which doesn't make sense. Either you really don't care about the competition and you just keep the same guys out there that are losing and really protect our starters, or you start with them to begin with and then you get weaker as you win the game. He did neither one of those. He went in the in-between where he started off really crap and then conceded the couple of goals and then tried to get stronger when the game was already lost. So his whole game plan was off. But again, we've seen this so many times already that it's just not that surprising. Most of the times when we went out in these cup competitions under Mikel Arteta, we've seen this, and even when the starters come on, they can't really change the game. And if you watch their faces on the bench, they're like, why the fuck am I warming up? Why am I coming out here? I think the intention from the beginning has to be, I'm taking this serious, or you're going to get a battering, Allison says, no, Jess, Saturday should be our focus. Poor, but we have bigger fish to fry. I know you're joking. Jay Peraza says, not having those subs at halftime is criminal from Arteta, not Arteta out, but need to bounce back from this. Come on, you Gunners. He just put more pressure on himself. A lot of us feel like he has to win a trophy, and the easiest trophy to win probably at this stage is the one that we went out of. So again, I don't think he can go trophyless this season and keep a lot of the fans' support. A lot of fans have said he needs to win silverware this season. Now, whether not the club makes any sort of decision on him, I don't think they will. I think they'll offer him a new deal, to be honest. But from a fan's perspective, I think a lot of us said that we wanted to see him win silverware. And I was very vocal about it being like a domestic cup would have been fine, but he's already went out of one of those. So he's made his job a lot harder. Monk says the funny thing is some of the starters from today have been good at closing games this season. in the Premier League, I think. I think in the Premier League and the Champions League, they've been able to do it. But in these domestic cups, in the Europa League, we just kind of can't seem to change the tide. Once we're bad, and we start bad from the beginning. So, Mindful says, because Kai is capable of doing a lot better, but is lacking confidence. Hugo says, didn't see the game, but I expect the FA Cup final now. I don't even know what to say. I can't even start thinking about that because, again, if we get a very difficult draw, and most teams take that competition more seriously than they do the Carabao Cup, based on what you've seen over the last 2, 3 seasons, do you actually think we're going to do anything in that competition either? He hasn't started off great. We've been good in the competitions I think that he really cares about. The Premier League and the Champions League. I understand that we really care about those competitions, so we're going to go a lot harder. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I honestly, I don't think your mentality and the energy that you put into a game should change based on the competition anyway. I think it I think we'd almost be better off grabbing kids from the academy and throwing them into these Carabao Cup and FA Cup games. The reason why I say that is because I just don't have the feeling that, like, even if you, again, we could have lost 3-2 today. Um, but if we had had the energy and the intention and the mentality and just got beat by West Ham because they played better than us, then you just have to suck that up. But the way that these players play when we don't have our starting 11 out there and you put like a heavily rotated lineup out there, I'm like, I'm not seeing the mentality and the energy that I feel like we should see from players that don't play that often or don't play consistently. And so, maybe we're missing a trick. Put the kids out there. I just don't think that, like, you know, Walters and them would have done a worse job. I don't. Noeri and MLS, put them out there. Let them run around. I don't think they would have done any worse. They would have at least cared and tried. Like, I don't want to go so far and say that I feel like they didn't care today and they weren't trying, but because I don't know for sure. But looking at it, it didn't look like they cared. Um, and we know what they look like when they care. We saw it like just a couple of days ago. It's so hard to put your finger on. I don't want to say that they don't care, but throw the kids out there, Charlie says, why do we always suffer against, oh my God. I don't want to put that out there. Mark says the energy and body language was most worrying for me tonight, and I do not blame the manager for that. There is a total lack of effort. Yeah, but I mean, if you're put out there with a team like we did, and I mean, I think it's a two-way street. I think the manager has to put out a lineup that sets up the team for success and does not have Jorginho and Zinchenko in it, doesn't have full wholesale changes that leave us exposed, that doesn't have Trossard playing as a touchline winger, things like that. I think those things set you up in a way where I don't think the players probably could play at their best anyway. But you're definitely right that they still have to figure out a way to persevere beyond that, and we just haven't broke through that barrier ever. When Arteta makes wholesale changes, we play like this all the time, and it gives I don't care. Even in like the Europa League, that's always kind of how I felt about our group stage games last season. I said it and I got absolutely murdered. In our group stage games against in the Europa League last season, I thought we were poor. Everybody was like, well, we're winning. The competition was very poor. We played against Zurich and we played against Bodo Glimt, I think. We played against PSV and like in Sporting as well. Not in the groups, but like when we got to the next round. And I just felt like in that group, and especially when we were away from home, we were very poor. Like the endeavor from the players that don't play very often, the energy was low. And I didn't really understand why that was. Now, the very next round that we got to, we went out to Sporting, which I'm not surprised because, like, I think you need to be excited and ready to go for that competition the whole time. You need to feel like it's important. We did not care about Europa League. And so it's a two-way street. The manager set us up to fail. But the players need to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is it that when we play in cup competitions, I can't keep us in it? You need your squad players to keep you into these competitions longer, and they just never do it. They never do it. We always go out. Mindful says Ramsdale was poor, conceded 2 unnecessary goals. Tef Def says Pepe was a confidence player. He also never really got going. We saw how that ended. Cosmic Moth says anyone talking up Eddie after today. Again, nothing about the hat trick needed to be played down at all. I don't think I think when you score a hat trick, Hale Ender, player, that's at your club, you just kind of celebrate it. But I said many times that doesn't have to mean anything else. And his form would dip right after that. Like it always dips within the next couple of games. This time it just dipped a lot quicker. So it is what it is. Brett says, we're not City, but you say compete in all 4 comps. Make it make sense. If we do well in this cup today and lose on Saturday, the madness you guys be saying, damned if you don't, damned if you do. Again, you're making it too black and white and too ridiculous. Like, I'm not saying that we have to win every single cup competition. I do expect us to compete. It's not like we couldn't have gotten to the next round and still beat Newcastle. Like, it's not win today and lose to Newcastle or lose today and beat Newcastle. We could very well get whooped against Newcastle at the weekend. So it's not that black and white and it's not that simple. I think you're trying really hard to make an excuse for something that doesn't need to be excused. It's just so simple to just say, we were crap today. We should do much better in cup competitions. That doesn't mean we have to win them, but we should at least lose to teams that are better than us. West Ham is not a better team than us. And maybe Arteta could have put out a stronger lineup and the team could actually have played with any sort of energy or mentality or character, and we would have gotten a better result. People would have accepted a loss to a team that played much better than us, and we put ourselves out there and we had the mentality, but we just came short. What we saw today was a complete lack of anything. So we're allowed to be upset by that. And nobody is saying that we have to be in every single competition and win every single one, but expecting Arsenal, a team that we consistently put on a high pedestal, not expecting them to compete in these competitions is just talking out of both sides of your mouth. I don't want to hear anybody that's saying we have bigger fish to fry and we shouldn't be caring about the Carabao Cup. I don't want any of those people to say that we're just as good as City or Liverpool or anybody and we're a top elite side. We're not. Elite sides don't do what we did today, not on a regular basis. We do it every single season and it's tiring. So we need to just I just feel like people want to have an excuse, and it's just okay to say this is a problem and maybe we should look at it. Arteta going out of domestic cups early it's consistent and it's the same way every single time. Wholesale changes, team looks like crap, starters can't come in and make a change. We go out early. Like, it's something that should be looked at and spoken about instead of swept under the rug as just like normal. When Manchester City won that competition like 5-6 times in a row, this consistent like, oh, well, Man City doesn't even care about this competition. Then why have they won it? Come on now. Let's be for real. Let's be for real, you guys. Let's not just be so head in the sand because we don't want to ever criticize anybody. I'm not saying the manager is the worst manager in the world and the players are shit and I want the manager out. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I expect to do better in these domestic competitions. At least look like we give a shit. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be as black and white. I'm not saying I want the manager out. I'm saying I want him to do better in these competitions, because this idea that we're just going to just wake up one day and just win the Premier League and win the Champions League and it's just going to be fine. Like a small cup would do this team a big world of good, I think. I really think so. And we already went out one. We already went out of one. So I don't know why people continuously just say the same shit every single season and think it's not a big deal. Charlie says, talk that talk, chest facts. I'm not gonna sit here and listen to this shit again, because I listened to it last season and people just called me negative, and I'm just like, I don't think I'm being negative for expecting a team that everybody puts on a very high pedestal to not get slapped in early stages of domestic cups and look like they can't kick a ball to each other. Again, if West Ham had just played much better than us, but we were in the game and we just got beat by the better team on the day, we didn't even show up. We didn't even show up. We should always criticize a team that did not step up and did not even show up. Our fan base is so we're not an evil fan base. If they went out there, played their fucking hearts out, but they just got beat, we would accept that, but that's not what we saw today. So don't gaslight me into thinking that that's we just saw West Ham was just so much better than us and we just couldn't. No. We all watched that game. That was horrendous. Chuck says B team sucks. Vieira, Jorginho, Havertz trio is weak. The thing is the B team is not that bad, but it can't all play together, which has always been the case. We can make changes, but we're not the type of team that we don't have like a whole another 11 that just goes together perfectly. Like we don't even have like for like players in every single position. Like nobody does, right? So if your team requires a midfielder with athleticism to hold the anchor for two smaller number 10s, then you have to play Rice today. You have to. You can't not. And if you don't have him in there, then and you want to play Jorginho, then you cannot play Zinchenko. If you want to play, Vieira, then you have to play somebody else on the other side. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you can't have all of them out there at once. That's the problem that I have. I don't think our bench players are look at the other day when we played against Sheffield or even other games where we've rotated and had like two or three players come in and out. Like Kivior comes in, we don't really lose anything. If Tomiyasu is in there instead of Zinchenko, we don't lose anything. If Jorginho plays the game, but he's around the starters, he plays fine. Like it's when we make wholesale changes, none of these players really go together. Can't have Zinchenko and Trossard on the same side. Like it's just simple things that never work. And so I'm very like against the idea that these players are all crap. I think people just are like, oh, well, these players are not any good. They can't step up. But most teams cannot change like 5, 6 players and just like be fine all the time. Like sometimes you have to make sure that you at least have some things that are normal. So if you're going to play, if you want to play Reese, then you maybe play Martinelli. If you want to play Trossard, play Saka. If you want to play Jorginho, don't play Zinchenko. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's just like so simple. But we made way too many changes that didn't really go together. And Jorginho, Havertz, and Vieira was always getting slapped. It was always getting slapped. Like, you know. So that's all I'm really saying is that like we're just not at a stage where we can just make wholesale changes. Some of our better players are gonna have to play in cup competitions or the ones that we're still in cup competitions every single week. It is what it is. Like, you know, if you want to stay in it. If you don't want to stay in the competition, do what you did today. Appstar says, Jess, this manager ain't going to win any trophies. 100% facts. Trust me. Anton Dunn says, I get you, Jess. A prolonged run in cups is a sign of a successful club. This is pathetic. And like, just at least get to Wembley. You can accept that going out at Wembley. You can accept that. These early going out is just, you know, and I just don't feel like it's that like bad to say or like we're not at the stage now where we're just accepting nonsense. You know, yeah, like that lineup that he put out today, when I saw it, I said he does not care about this at all. And so we went out. Like, it's just so hard. I'm not saying that you can have priorities. You can have the Premier League and Champions League be your priorities without doing what we did today. And I think that's the thing is like people are trying to convince themselves that in order for us to do well in the other competitions, we had to do what we did today. I don't believe that we had to do what we did today. I don't think we had to go in there with the lineup that we did. I don't think we had to play like crap. I don't think we had to chuck the ball into the back of our net. I don't think we had to do any of that, so we need to do better. Chuck, thank you so much for your super chat. Says imbalanced team, no physicality, no threat at all. Clement says the goal, instead of being happy with getting Champions League and getting beat in the knockout stages or losing in early stages of cup competitions. Yeah. Mark says hit the like button. Let's help growing the channel. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We're going to get into player ratings in just a second, but we're going to like fly through those. I feel like there's really no point in spending like tons of time on that because like, let's be real, everybody pretty much gets a 0. But for the next 20, 25 minutes, we could definitely just still get in the chat and chit chat about the game because I knew we were going to have these conversations when we went out of a cup competition early. It's the same conversations we've been having for the last 2 seasons, and the same faces, the same people online, the same content creators are saying the same thing every single year, that we don't need these cup competitions. Like it's fine. It's okay to just go out of them. But then when we don't meet the targets at the end of the season, then they act like that's okay as well. Like the amount of stress that we've had at the beginning of the season is not because we're just like not looking the same. It's because people were like, or were dishonest about how disappointed they were at the back end of last season. They pretended that it was okay to go out of cup competitions early, to go out of the Europa League, and then we missed out embarrassingly, by the way, on the Premier League. And so there's a lot of pressure on this season. And so we're not even bad this season, but people are like, we're so stressed because people won't be honest. I think if you're just honest, like you could just say the truth, that it was very disappointing to lose the way that we did. We maybe should have taken the Europa League a little bit more seriously in the domestic cups. Maybe staying in those competitions would have allowed our rotational options, our squad to remain like fit and sharp. And going out of the competitions was actually a hindrance, not something that was going to help us. It was poor to lose out on the Premier League the way that we did, and we expect better this season. But people pretend all the time that they're happy with shit that they're not, and I know they're not, because nobody could be happy going out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup every single season the same way. Like they just cannot. It cannot. Like you can't. Let's be for real. Nuances of Fate says truth is there really aren't lots of opportunities to win things. We shouldn't be throwing them away. The thing is, you're never gonna, like, in a couple of years, we won't even remember the season that we came second. We won't. Like, I don't remember any season that we finished second, third. I don't remember. I don't at all. But you damn Skippy, I remember those two games that we played against Chelsea and Man City in 2019 and won the FA Cup. That was way more memorable than what we did last season. We'll forget about that. It won't mean anything. It'll be a footnote because you don't really remember run-ins, and when you really got close, you remember the trophies at the end of the day. And I want this team, it's too good not to win trophies. So whether if it's, some FA Cups and a Carabao Cup and we finish second, I'd much prefer that than what we're gearing ourselves up for, which is getting close but not good enough. I would hate for this team not to win anything. So, like somebody was saying, like nuances, there's not a lot of opportunities to win things. So, why are we just throwing it away? But equally, if I'm Saka and I'm Martinelli, I'm Rice, I'm Saliba, I'm Tommy, I am furious. I am absolutely furious that I'm being rested for a game at the weekend and this team can't even be asked to like show up and like win the game for us. What is it going to take for these players to step up when the starters are not there? I need to know, what is the mentality? What is the talk? What is it before? Because I've seen this so many times that I'm like, something is not right. Because when I see other teams, like squad players, go out there, they look like they're hungry to be out there because they don't get that much playing time. Ours look like they can't be asked. If all you want to do is play in the Champions League and the Premier League, I don't know. Like, you should just be happy to be on the pitch for Arsenal, you know? And why do they look like that? They didn't look like that the other day when they're playing against Sheffield. Grow up, yo. Like, come on. I need you guys to do something. I need you guys to make it shake. Boy says Arteta isn't going to make a similar selection in the FA Cup. We got answers today. Afsar says, you guys are talking to each other. Social Join says, I don't care about dropping out of the cup. I care about how you drop out of the cup. These guys beg for minutes and perform like this. This is what I'm saying. Like, again, this fan base is very reasonable. Had we had went out with some dignity, I don't think people would they'd be disappointed, but they wouldn't be like enraged the way that they are right now. And I don't think that anybody is wrong, because I sat here with you guys on the watch along watching a game that I wanted to turn off in the first 20 minutes because I was like, we don't look like ourselves, and we gave up that goal, and we didn't look like we're ready to fight or anything. Like, we just looked like we were okay to let it slide. And then at the beginning of the second half, I swore like I could have rage quit. So it's just crazy. Money sub says just 100%. Mark says no team is good enough to win a trophy if the mentality and energy is not there. You cannot walk into a game thinking we already won. It's a concern in games how we change from one game to the next. And I do hear you. I hear you on that. I think the energy, like what you're talking about, the energy and the mentality is always what I've been concerned about in the cup competitions, because it's always kind of the same. In the Europa League early rounds, like, and is it coming from the manager? Is it the players? Like, who is it? But if you're not really if you're really not prepared to fight no matter what competition it is, then you don't need to be here. Um, so yeah. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, I've seen several years of Arsenal flattering to deceive outside of the Premier League under Arteta. It's very much his squad now, so I'd like to know what gives. And I feel like the only time that we ever took these cup competitions seriously is in Arteta's first season when basically he had to win the FA Cup in order for us to have any semblance of Europe, you know? And ever since then, it's not been a priority. And I know that there's other competitions that take more precedent, but you have to learn how to prioritize, but not completely throw things away. The balance is just not there. We either are 100% in the Premier League and we're 0% in the cups. It's just not enough for me. It's not enough for me personally. I want to see a manager that can get this team up and prepared for a game against West Ham, like much better than what we were today. I feel like that's what I would prefer that. You may prefer bigger fish to fry. I don't really like that, to be honest. It's not for me. Andy Jackson says Arteta knocked out of the fourth round more times than Frank Bruno. Charlie says not enough for all of us. Ocampo says such a painful loss to take. I thought that squad was good enough to beat West Ham. I think if they had played like they cared about it at all, they would have played better. But I think the way that we set up had huge limitations to it. There's just you have Vieira and Trossard out there with Zinchenko and Jorginho. Does that sound good to you? Does that sound balanced to you? Does it sound like the players individually have lots of quality, but when you put them together, there's no dynamism, athleticism, no speed, no directness, no nothing. And when you press upon Jorginho and Zinchenko, they tend to start to either rush their passes and do these like little 1-2s where they're barely getting to it, or they give it up and they get nicked. It just was never going to be conducive to Arsenal being able to create anything. And there was nobody to stretch their defense. There was nobody there to dribble past their defense. There's just nothing. A lot of ball to feet players that need space and time to get their shit together. And we didn't have space and time today. So Kai Havertz started off well and really faded away. That was really disappointing, I thought. And Eddie was like nowhere to be found. Like that whole group did nothing. Zinchenko, Jorginho, Vieira, Trossard, Eddie, and Kai. That's 6 players out there that were like at ones and twos. Ones and twos. And I don't want to include Reese because I thought he was trying. And then the defense was just whatever it was. So yeah, it's tough when you're at ones and twos and you're just barely out there. Like, how are you gonna win? Barry says, I hope the players are disgusted in that performance. You have to, outside your coach manager, look at yourself and say that's not good enough, especially if you're not a regular starter. Social Join says, people want to know why Zinni doesn't play in midfield. This game is why. Fair enough. Charlie says, Trossard wanted to play. I always slayed him. Havertz and Reese wanted to play. Everyone else could hardly give a damn. It was tough to watch. For real. Here to there says we aren't going to score enough to even touch City or Liverpool unless Arteta changes tactically or we get a proper 9. I hope everyone starts realizing it. Yeah, we were toothless today. Very toothless. You know, it's the way that we're set up. We looked very like they were just really well set up and we couldn't really do anything. I don't know. The lack of energy and mentality for me, if you have that, you're not going to create anything anyway. We've created a lot more in other games too. So, yeah, we, we just today was just a whole 0 in every department. It's hard for me to look at this game and say like, yeah, the issue is just like we're not going to score enough goals cuz we just didn't really even do anything. We're passing it sideways and backwards. I don't know. I don't want to rewatch this game, but I feel like I will have to just to be able to see like exactly what was going on because yeah, we didn't look like scoring, but is that about a striker or is that about, telling Jorginho and Zinchenko to do this midfield thing that's never works. P. Trim says a lot of our players looked a bit uninterested, slow, unassured, disconnected. It's the players humbled today. And maybe they thought they were just too good. Like, I don't know, but I don't want to say that they don't care and that they didn't try because I don't know for sure, but that's how it looked from the outside. And that's why people cannot accept it, you know? Um because it just didn't look like the players could give a damn. It's like, why are we watching? Like, why are we watching? If you don't care, why do I care? Obi says, just look at that shambolic midfield Arteta put up today. No physicality in there. Nothing. I'm fuming, Jess. If Arteta doesn't win a trophy this season, he should be handed his P45. You can't be mad because we have bigger fish to fry and you're just losing your head. It's only the second loss of a season. Why are you so upset? Social Join says that lineup was Socrates level lineup. You just knew it when you saw it. You just knew it when you saw it. When you saw it, you knew that we weren't going to do anything, right? Like, look, are you serious? Are you telling me that you guys looked at this and said, you know what, this is going to be all right? This is just going to be A-okay. Red flag, Zinchenko, Jorginho together. Red flag, Havertz and Vieira together. Red flag, like what is the front? Like the front line was actually probably would have created more had the midfield been all right. But I don't know. I looked at it and I just thought, you know what? Today is going to be rough. Let's do some player ratings. Let's get into it. Ramsdale conceded 3, didn't really do anything for the narrative that he's a much better goalkeeper than Raya. Don't think I've said how I feel about this. I don't think I really need to say that much more. I think that Raya is the number one goalkeeper and should be. I think when Ramsdale is in the goal, sometimes absolutely everything goes in. And today, absolutely everything went in. Like, I don't, could he have done better on some of those? I think so. Is it completely all of his fault? Absolutely not. I think he's being held on the first goal, but everything else just went into the back of the net. He wasn't anywhere near it. And sometimes you just have to make a save to save us a little bit, Shaky playing out from the back a couple of times, like some of the mistakes that he made playing out from the back. If Raya had made those, I'd be hearing about it right now. So definitely doesn't need to be starting in the next game. And, it is what it is. 5. He didn't do anything really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't save us. He didn't do anything. Like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about him, He was really poor. I don't know. Was he really poor? I don't know. He just didn't get to anything. The Cosmic Moth says 3 for Rambo. This was painful to watch. Martin N says 2. He was set up for failure. Obi says Ramsdale 0. Andy Jackson says, oh, you guys are talking to each other. Die Hard says Ramsdale was a 1, useless. Mark says Ramsdale 5 did not have a chance with the 3 goals. Really did nothing really wrong today, but conceding 3 is never a good day at the office. Passing was lackluster as well. Let's see. Charlie says Ramsdale is never getting that number 1 back. It's done. Goodbye, Aaron. Amon says Ray is the number 1 Ramsdale fans. Tawanda says Raya is the number 1 keeper. What the hell happened to Ramsdale? These are the types of things that I've seen from him, though, like where people just say like he had no chance at all. He doesn't save anything. He doesn't really save much. He saves less than he should, and he makes really easy chances look like worldies. Like, whatever. Like, we've spoken about him so much in the last couple of weeks that I'm not really surprised at what I saw today. Amon says 4. Mamang says 4. Donut says Sahi Ramsdale 4. Charlie says he can't command his box, doesn't come out to take high balls, always overcovers his near post, can't even save a deflected shot at his throat, everything on target, and it's a goal. Your words, not mine. But I've been speaking about that for a while. Everything on frame pretty much goes in the goal, which is not a good sign. But you know, I don't. I really wish he had just played well and we had won the game. Ben White, not a good game for him. Looked like he just was like on another planet. Obviously, own goal, I think, shook him to his core. He scored the own goal and then he never really recovered from that. I mean, what else do you really say? He had a really poor game. 4. It should be even probably lower than that. A 3 own goal set us off in the wrong direction. Should Ramsdale should be there to punch it out? Is it because he's being held? Should Ben White just do better for the header because he's a little bit ahead of it? So when he tries to head it, it goes back in the net. Sets us off in the wrong direction. 3. I don't know. He just wasn't good. Gabriel also really poor. I thought, somebody who's been really consistent. This is probably his worst performance of the season. Looked rattled the entire time. Looked like he just was like lost his whole bearings. I don't know if it's just because he's not near Saliba or what, but he did not look good today at all. Poor performance from him as well. I should give him even lower than that, 5, whatever. The defense was probably the least of our worries, and that's weird because we conceded so many goals, but um, Zinchenko really poor today. He's being asked to do things that at this stage, I don't know, his influence hasn't been as much this season, so I just feel as though, like, Arteta needs to be able to identify that and not set him up for failure. Zinchenko's a very talented player that has a lot of value in the position that he plays because when we play against the right types of teams, he helps us really break them down. But Zinchenko needs to be next to a Declan Rice. He needs to be next to Thomas Partey. He cannot be next to a Jorginho. For the Kudus goal, he was absolutely horrendous. He was nowhere near it. He didn't look like even trying to get near it. Zinchenko needs to be dropped for the Newcastle game. I do not want to see him. I want to see Tomiyasu. And, he just probably needs to sit out for the next couple of games where Arteta figures out the right times to use him, because using him in every single game or using him in games like this where you're going to be playing up against Bowen and Kudus and guys like this, it just was always going to be a really long day. He was all on the right-hand side. The whole first half, I was screaming. He was on the other side of Jorginho. He wasn't even on the left. He was on the right. He was dictating play from right wing. What the fuck? Why is he there? Like, it's so egregious at this point. I'm like, Arteta is just so heavily reliant on this player to be all of our buildup. And he needs to figure out a way for this team to build up play without being so heavily reliant on our left back playing on the right-hand side of midfield. Please, coach, figure out a system. Like, it worked last season, but it's not working this season. So you need to be flexible. 3, very poor. Very, very poor today. Does not need to play against Newcastle. Needs to sit out while Arteta figures out how he's going to use this guy, because it's just not going to work. Kivior, shaky game. Thought he was okay, but was a little weak in some ways. I thought there was one time where he ducked at the back post. I'm going to need you to put your head on that ball, buddy. Can't just be ducking in the back at the back post. Again, like, they came down 3 times and scored. 2 of them were just kind of like whatever, but for the most part, it's not like West Ham really were like pinning us back or anything like that. So the defense didn't have much to do but stop the 3 goals that went in, and they couldn't do it. But he was okay. Gonna give him a 5. Maybe don't play 2 left-sided or left-footed center backs together. Maybe that. That didn't work. I said we should have went Tommy Gabriel like we did against Brentford. Not sure why we didn't do it. Tawanda says 5. Diehard says Kivior, he was decent. I thought he was decent as well. Manib says Kivior, the better of the CBs. I would say a 5. I agree. Here to there says facts, Jess. Arteta has to resign. Rein Zinchenko in. He was found out last season and a big reason for our collapse. And it's up to the manager to put our players in really important, like in positions where they feel comfortable and where they won't be exposed. And the continual, like, putting Zinchenko in these positions, allowing him to have this free role, that really works against like a Sheffield. It doesn't work against the better sides. So you need to figure out a way to use Zinchenko more sparingly, and set up the team where if he's next to Rice, he's fine. If he's next to Thomas Partey, he's fine. Not next to Jorginho. Barry says one thing about Zinni is he's still a vital player, but he just can't play certain games, but others he is important. It's up to the manager to figure that shit out and not continuously do this shit. It's just getting to the point now where it's like, are you trying to make us lose or what? Horrendous game from Jorginho, I thought. Really just, and here's the thing about Jorginho is I probably won't be so disappointed in him for not having the legs to get back, because guess what? Jorginho doesn't have the legs. Like, He's never had the legs. So again, it's up to the manager not to expose him and put him in positions where he's going to get absolutely run over. Where I was really disappointed in Jorginho was his passing. I thought he was ponderous on the ball. I thought he was slow on the ball. He didn't find a single pass in between the lines. He just kept passing it backwards and sideways. And I expect you to be elite on the ball, even though I expect you to not be as good off the ball. I will never be mad at Jorginho for getting ran over because he's never going to be able to stop Paquetá or Kudus or these guys from running beyond him. But when he gets on the ball, I expect him to do the things that we've always heard Jorginho is really good at. So Jorginho, for me, poor game. 4. Thought the whole midfield pivot thing was an absolute joke today, and I don't want to ever see it again. If I see it again, I'm not watching the game. Period. Like, there's just why? Like, why are we doing it? Andy says Jorginho 0. Manib says he had an okay first half. Jorginho, I would be giving him a 5. Kept the game ticking. And Mdu says Zinchenko is distracted with politics. Hasn't looked the same. I'm just gonna put that away. Die Hard Gunner says does not pass through the lines. He didn't pass through the lines at all. That's the thing. It's like that's what he's good at. You know, he's good at passing between the lines. He didn't do it at all. You know, and so I can't be mad that he's getting ran over by Kudus, but I will get mad that he didn't. And you know what it is as well, you guys, is Jorginho and Zinchenko are very experienced players. And so they need to be able to figure out things on the fly. I expect young players, like when we played Sambi and Patino in midfield, I expect us to get killed because that's horrendous, you know. But Jorginho is vastly experienced and has won things before. Zinchenko has won things with Manchester City. He's experienced as well. For them to be 2 of our worst performers, for me, at the heart of our midfield is very disappointing and would make me think twice about playing either one of them for the next couple of games. Because if you can't step up right now, I'm not going to expect you to step up against Newcastle. I'm not going to expect you to step up against Sevilla at home. Really important games. You absolutely shat the bed. And so neither one of them would be in my starting 11 for a while because, damn, like you can't even, your whole shtick is we're really good on the ball. Like, so be good on the ball. I expect you to get ran over in the other direction, but when you get on the ball, I want to see you do something. Like, this is the same pivot that played against Newcastle last season away from home. Eddie Howe is probably like, please play that shit again, because he may have gotten caught off guard a little bit when we beat them 2-0, but he won't be caught off guard this time. I don't want to see him or Zinchenko. I want to see Rice and Tommy, because these guys, and they didn't earn the right to play against Newcastle at all. At all. Nope, did not earn it. Ed Zico says Jorginho played well. I don't agree. I don't think he did anything on the ball to write home about. And Rico says we need to move Jorginho on. This should be his last season anyway. Ocampo says looks at the beast in that Newcastle team. Jorginho will be destroyed. It's crazy. Charlie says inverting is done, Jess. Teams have figured it out how to expose Zinchenko defensively. You can do it in some games. Like, it's fine in some games. Like, I do think that we go too far and we're like, we can never do it again. Zinchenko needs to pack his bags. But Arteta does it every game. If you don't do it every single game, then they won't be able to figure it out every single game. If you do it all the time and you do it so like egregiously where he's on the right-hand side, then, and it's the only way that you can build up. The thing about like when Zinchenko's on the pitch, he's our only way to build up. Just because you have an inverted fullback doesn't mean that's the only way that you build through the thirds. And I think what we've lost a little bit is like the ability to build out on both sides. It's just if Zinchenko's on the pitch, he needs to, if we want to build on the right, he's going to move to the right. If we're going to build on the left, he's going to move to the left. That was not how we were playing last season. It was not how we were playing last season. He's become even more reliant on it. He needs to figure out a way to compensate for what Thomas Partey Thomas Partey and Xhaka leaving. Those 2 players did a lot of heavy lifting in our build-up. And now he has a different player in Rice, and he has no Granit. You made an absolute mess of left center mid. I think that's a big reason why we cannot do the things that we did last season. And so now he's like, Zinchenko, just do it for me. He can't. Fabio, non-existent. Very poor game from him. 4. He just wasn't even like involved like at all. Like I cannot remember a single thing that he did. 4, Havertz fell asleep halfway through the first half. Started off pretty well, but didn't really do anything beyond that. Had some chances to make some better decisions in the final third as well. and just couldn't seem to make a decision. Sometimes he shoots when he should cross it. Sometimes he crosses it when he should be shooting. He just doesn't have the confidence. And quite frankly, we didn't need this player that we needed. Like, we need to reprogram and send to therapy in a season where we have so much pressure on us. This should have been a slam dunk signing, 60 million for a top quality midfielder or top quality attacker, and we went for neither. And not only is it's not even just like he's a poor footballer, it's he doesn't even have the confidence to do the basics. So it's just such a bad decision. I'm still hoping that he comes good because he has to. But Arteta really needs to focus on getting this player going. But he has so many things on his plate. He has to figure out what's the problem with our buildup, why we don't look as fluid in attack. He needs to get Odegaard back on because Odegaard is more important than Kai Havertz, but Kai Havertz also needs to work. So he has so many things on his plate, but this is a self-inflicted problem that he's had with Kai Havertz. Like, it's self-inflicted. He's like, you didn't have to do this. Like, every game that goes by like this, I'm like, damn, why? Why do we do this? Obi says Havertz -10, shocking player. Barry Burns says Havertz 5, thought initially looked up for it, but then the whole team is off and he doesn't have the confidence to fight or grind away. He just wilts away, sadly. Die Hard Gunner says Havertz was a 4. Manib says Havertz 2, sell him now. The guy looks broken. We could have got Madison or Soboslai. I think that's also why it's like you just didn't have to. There were so many other players that you could have gotten. So for me, it's not even about Havertz anymore because he's here and it's not his fault that he's here. Like, I think we direct a lot of our anger towards the player when we should actually direct it towards the people that have made the decision that didn't make any sense to begin with. Like, Havertz is a player that hasn't played well for like 3 seasons for a team that we watch every week. So you knew that it wasn't just like the player and the profile and does it fit in the left center mid. It's the fact that the player is on so low confidence. We needed somebody that was going to boost us up, not take us down. And so losing Xhaka, that's always like full of confidence and a leader, and replacing him with a wallflower that needs a lot of therapy and like patting on the back beyond football is a poor decision, I think. Even if he's not the same profile, bring a leader in, bring somebody that's confident in at the very least. I really like Havertz as a person, player, whatever. Like, it's not even on him anymore. Like, I just think the manager and the recruitment team need to look at this and say, how can we never do it again? Because it's just not looking like the thing. Um, and I'm not going to do the same thing that I did with Xhaka and scapegoat him for years because he's not working out in a position that he's never really played before. We had a decision to make, and we could have bought Conte. We bought Xhaka and then played him in the wrong position for years. And then the season where we put him in the position where he plays the best, he played well and left. So this isn't on Kai anymore. It's on the manager, period. And it was his signing. They said it was his signing. They gave him all the credit. Ed Zico says Ramsdale has shut the mouths of all of his supporters. Social Join says Kai Havertz struggles with 5-yard passes. P. Trim says no doubt in the manager's mind what additions are and subtractions required now. Ocampo says today was the whole team down tools. DAJ says Kudus could have brought in. We could have brought him in with the Kai money. And you just look at look at Kudus. He didn't need confidence. He didn't need to be coddled into playing. He could have played multiple positions. He can play as a 10 and off wide. And we chose to bring in somebody that needs a lot of work to get going. I don't know why we made our job even harder than it needed to be. This needed to be a slam dunk signing, and it's not anywhere near it. So it's not really on Kai. If I was Kai, I'd be dying to come to Arsenal as well, SAF says it's a pity the owners are American or the cone man would have been fired a long time ago. Mark Neighbor says, does the price tag determine a lot of people's issues or the fact that he was at Chelsea? Both. It's both. It's the Chelsea reject, keep taking him on after years of doing it. Louise, William Gallas, just continuously taking their drags. and making them our problem. I think that that's a key part of it. I would love for our transfer policy to say no more Chelsea players no matter what. And then the price tag and seeing the other players that we could have gotten in that position, I think is just making Arsenal fans just so disappointed. And I can't really blame them for it. I want it to work out, but I don't I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel like it's working yet, but in games like this, it just becomes even more frustrating. Even more frustrating. I don't think he was our main issue, but he definitely didn't help us out. Um, he did nothing today. He had 2 opportunities on goal and, didn't get either one on frame. He had 2 opportunities and didn't get either one on frame. Um, his back to life, back to reality came a lot quicker than it did the last time. Usually it takes 2 or 3 games for him to lose his form again, but here we are. And this is who we have until December. Eddie is just what he is. He's an average striker that can score goals against the lower half. I do think he deserved credit against Sheffield. I don't think we needed to try to take it from him or whatever, but this has always been what it is. Like, Eddie is not good enough to lead the line for Arsenal for any length of time, and we need to figure out another solution because this will not be the last this type of game that we see from him. If we're not playing like perfectly and really well and against lower level opposition, he has a difficult time to score. He has difficult time scoring. So Newcastle is going to be very funny because if he found it really difficult to get any change out of the West Ham defenders, he's going to really struggle against Newcastle. So it's not great. You were not existent, buddy. 5. It was like he wasn't even there. It was like he didn't even exist. It's so bad. Um, but hey, Arteta really rates him. Trossard, he really didn't play well either. It was like he was just not existent as well. I wonder how he would have done with a more balanced midfield behind him. I always want to put in the caveat that I think our attackers really struggle from not having a decent midfield behind him, but whatever. Like, that doesn't mean that you have to pass it to the other team. That doesn't mean you have to be completely ineffective. 5 as well. Very poor today. Not really in it. Not really, making a difference. Reece, probably the only player that tried. That you could see visibly with your eyes that they were trying. I feel really bad for Reece. I don't think he deserved to be like, imagine being Reece. Like, you only get playing time in the Carabao Cup, and when you get it, you have to play with players that don't give a shit. Like, can you actually imagine being Reece Nelson? I mean, I give him a 6. He was nowhere near as bad as everybody else. I feel really bad for him. He's the only player that I really feel bad for. You get one opportunity, and this is how they play. This is how they play. I don't know. I feel really bad for him. Ghost says Reece 6. Ocampo says that run was awesome for Reece. Tawanda says 5 for Reece. Tawanda says Trossard was non-existent. Social Join says Trossard is just a sub guy. Mark Neighbor says we forget Eddie is no kid anymore. He's 24 years old. Time is up. Blaze says, don't you think Trossard should start in the left center mid position? I think Trossard is the type of player that needs to play on the interior. So I think whether he's playing on the wing or he's playing in midfield, he needs to play around people that he can connect with, and he needs to be able to he needs to be in a system that allows him to kind of see the picture and 1-2 passes and be creative. And we don't allow for that in the system right now. And Arteta puts him on the touchline and says, don't do what Martinelli does. He'll never be good doing that because that's just not what he does. Now, Arteta decided after the first time this season that he played at center forward, he would never play there again. But I remember last season when he stepped in for Jesus when Nketiah fell off, that he was really good at center forward from the start, starting games. So Trossard is just not somebody that I think Arteta really rates that highly, if I'm honest with you. I think Trossard is somebody that, doesn't really fit Arteta's, Arsene would love Trossard. Trossard would start every single game for Arsene. Trossard would start every single game for Arsene. But for Arteta, he's too much of a creative player. He wants to play in a free-flowing system, and we're a lot more stringent in the way that we do things, and our players are a lot more isolated. We don't connect We don't overlap. We don't, we don't move. Our players are very like in their positions. And like when Saka gets it, the only player that can move is Ben White. Ben White moves over there. It's like these same little robotic things that we always do. Trossard wants to come deep and, connect with players on both sides. He wants to do a lot of things that our players don't aren't allowed to do. So Trossard is never going to be a starter at Arsenal. It's just Arteta doesn't like him. Doesn't rate him as high as he does other players. So I don't think he'll ever play left center mid. I don't think he'll ever play left wing in a system that allows him to be creative. I just think Trossard is just going to kind of be there. I don't think Arteta really rates him that highly. I mean, like Eddie can have ghost game after ghost game after ghost game and start every single game. Trossard plays center forward once, gets hooked at halftime, and we never see him there again. Even after last season, he played there really well. He just doesn't rate him as highly. It's just that simple to me. P Trim says, last time we go shopping in Chelsea's mall, Tawanda says Wenger would love Trossard. He would. Charlie says, why don't we play 1-2s anyway? Our buildups are so predictable. We don't move, and like it's just very like everybody stays in their own position. The only people that can switch positions are like Jesus switched positions with Martinelli. Our midfielders kind of stay stationary. Saka and Ben White can connect on that side. Odegaard kind of like stays in a stationary position. We don't really switch positions or create spaces in that way that a player like Emil Smith-Rowe, a player like Vieira, a player like Trossard would really benefit from. Those players are always going to suffer under Mikel Arteta because they need combination play. That's just not the way that we play. Blaze says, Jess Arteta said in his press conference, ESR will be out for weeks. Feel sad for him. Damn. Charlie says Martinelli in the 9, Trossard at left wing should be the move. He'll never do that. Social Join says play 1-2 with Havertz and Fabio. Yeah, not Havertz in particular. I'm talking about players that's how they play. They're combination players. They're not 1v1 on the sideline, isolated, asked to do 4 roles on their own. Most players need players to play with, and we don't do it. So, yeah, and then we just say that they're crap, but don't look at anything else. But in terms of the subs, all the subs are gonna get like a 6. Like I don't really think that we need to sit there and talk about like Tommy and Rice, and because they shouldn't even had to come out there on the pitch. I'm glad that Odegaard scored a goal. Well done for him. But it's just a little consolation in a game that really was 3-0. So there's not really much to talk about in regards to that. But it's just what I don't know, you guys. I don't like going into games. I don't like losing games like this right before we're about to play against a more difficult side because it makes me more nervous than I felt like I need to be. Like I wasn't nervous going into the Newcastle game. Now I'm like very nervous. But if they're going to play like they don't care about the Carabao Cup and they're willing to go out of it, then you better beat Newcastle at the weekend. But Newcastle, they're in decent form now. They're scoring loads of goals. They obviously have gone through to the next round of the Carabao Cup, so they'll be on a high. And so, it's going to be a really difficult game. We did not even show up today, so they need to show up on the weekend. Mikel Arteta had an awful game today. Again, when we win and we play well, I'll give him credit. When we lose and play awful, it's on him. And so, at some stage, he needs to get real about these players that he keeps continuously playing in the same positions and allowing them to get smacked. If you stop playing Zinchenko and Jorginho together, I would love that because next time I see them playing together, I'm just not going to watch because it's have I ever watched them play together? Maybe once or twice I've watched them play together and they've won, but most of the time it doesn't work. We know Ray is going to play, so that's fine. And just try to play players in positions that they'll be good in, today was just so bad. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, come on now. Obi says, this is me saying it now. We will lose at Newcastle. Social Join says, I don't expect to win at Newcastle. Sorry. Look, what I'll say is that we have really taken the Premier League and the Carabao, not the Carabao Cup, the Premier League and the Champions League very seriously. So I feel like just like last season, we'll see very below par performances in cups that we clearly don't care about, and then we'll come out and we'll play really well in the Premier League. We know that this team can switch it on and off. We saw it last season. They would play awful in the Europa League, barely scrape a win, or lose. We lost to PSV away, whatever, and then turn around and play really well in the Premier League. They just don't care about these cup competitions. So I'm not going to say it's 100% a loss yet, because we won't even see this team. We'll play our real team. We'll play with Saka and Martinelli. We'll play with Rice. We'll play with a better team. So I don't 100% think that there's like no way we'll win it. But this big dichotomy between the way that we play in cups and the way that we play in the Premier League is really worrying to me, because I think our team should have the mentality and the endeavor and the energy to put their best foot forward in every single competition, no matter who's out there, no matter who the competition is, because they play for Arsenal, and Arsenal is not the type of team that, it's not the type of club that just lays down the way that we did today. That was an atrocious performance where they should all hang their heads, but it's not the first time that we've seen it. So people that feel like I'm overreacting, like, I just, for whatever, like, I don't really care. I know that there's somebody shouting, oh my gosh, this girl, she's raging because we lost our second game of the season. I'm upset because I just watched my team play pathetic football against West Ham in the Carabao Cup and went out without a fight. And that for me is just like unacceptable for Arsenal. So like, I'm not about high standards for high standards sake, but at some stage as a fan base, we need to start expecting more from this team. Stop putting them on a pedestal and saying that they're so good and they're up there with Manchester City, and then be okay with them doing what they did today, because it's not the same. You just cannot do it anymore. This team is young, but let's be for real. A couple more comments and then we'll get out of here. I have to go ahead and get out of here too. Ocampo says it was so unlike Arteta team, which has fight and passion. So unlike it. Not unlike it when we're in cup competitions. When we're in cup competitions, we are a completely different team. And when I say cups, I don't mean Champions League. I mean Europa League, Carabao. We'll do the odd one here and there, like the one time that we got to the semis against Liverpool, and not the last season, but the season before last. Yeah, we'll do it every once in a while. But for the most part, this is who we are in these competitions. Mark has a quote here from Arteta, says, I'm disappointed with myself. We wanted to play in a different way, and we weren't able to do that. Every time we lose, the pain is there. Whatever. Stop playing Zinchenko and Jorginho together. Clement says, as fans, we care about the FA Cup just like we care about the Premier League and the Champions League. Yeah, you guys, you care about the FA Cup, but when's the last time we did a deep run in that competition? Like, it's not just like the fans, they pick and choose. They think they're too good for a Carabao Cup, but the continuous, like, we're going to get a difficult draw in the FA Cup, and I want us to all come back here and I want you guys to say, Jessica, you were right, because that's what happened last season. We went out of the Carabao Cup like pathetic, and then we were like, well, we'll go hard in the FA Cup. It's fine. We got Man City. We went out. Boom, out of both domestic cups. Play what's in front of you and stop picking and choosing like you're an elite side. That's, you're going to win something, but I'm going to choose which one I want to win. No, we're not elite. So you need to just try to win what's in front of you. And I'm not saying you have to play your strongest, but you shouldn't have played what you played today. As fans, we care about the FA Cup, but I've yet to see Arteta outside of 2019 take that competition seriously either. So how about we actually try? Let's see. Mark says, we have to use this pain and this defeat to prepare in the best way for Newcastle on Saturday. Play a decent lineup. Start there. Charlie says this whole young thing needs to end. Either they want to win or they don't. Being young needs to be thrown away now. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Ocampo says we were 2 games away from Wembley. Shocking. You'll never get to Wembley and have those moments if you do what you did today. And so this team doesn't have a winning mentality yet. Maybe they're building it, maybe they're not, but the manager didn't set them up properly, didn't set them up for success, and they just kind of lived in it, So it is what it is, you guys. But we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. Obviously, content tomorrow, go live tomorrow, somewhere between 4 and 5 p.m. UK time. I am going to enjoy the rest of my day because I've been asked to be on a podcast. So I'm excited. Nevertheless, even though Arsenal have tried to ruin my day, they will not. If you didn't like the show, tough shit. It wasn't anything to like. But we go again against Newcastle, and hopefully Arsenal will step up and play in the Premier League the way that we know that they can. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.